Hey, your duty cycle really knows how to turn me on and off and on again and then off again. Duty cycle. D-U-T-Y space C-Y-C-L-E. Duty cycle. We've got two separate words put together to comprise our engineering phrase of the day or our engineering term of the day, duty cycle. My first experience with this term comes from electrical engineering, but it is a term that you hear in other engineering fields as well. So what is a duty cycle? Well, a duty cycle it's a descriptor of how often something is on in a repeated pattern. All right, so that may not be clear. So let me give you a visual, a really, really basic visual. Remember when I was a little kid and I was amazed by, I was very entertained by flipping lights on and off, maybe. Maybe that's just me. So I'd walk in a room and then I would flip the switch in the room and then flip it off again and then on again and then off again. And I would have my own dance party, right? Turn it off and on, off and on. And then, your parents yell at you to stop doing that. Well, when I flip the light, on, then off, then on, then off, then on, then off, that is a repeated cycle, a repeated on-off cycle. And if I want to describe how much I flipped the light on compared to how much I flipped the light off, I would get the duty cycle. So for example, if I had a 50% duty cycle, that meant that I flipped the light on just as much as I flipped it off. Like I left it on for a second, then flipped it off for a second, then flipped it back on for a second, then flipped it back off for a second. It was like a 1-to-1 ratio. And it was on and off at exactly the same amount of time. Maybe I'm still annoying people the same amount by doing that, but it was on, and then it was off, then on, then off the same amount of time. But what if I flipped it on for 2 seconds, then flipped it off for just a half second? And then I flipped it on for 2 seconds again, and then I flipped it off for a half second. And then I flipped it on for 2 seconds again, and then turned it off for another half second. Well, that's another repeated cycle or pattern of on and off behavior or signals. But notice how I'm leaving the lights on longer than I'm leaving them off. What's my duty cycle then? Well, it's greater than 50%. In that case, if you want to do a little bit of math, you would look at how long is my cycle total or my period. And that would be like the 2 seconds on plus the half second off. So I have a 2.5 second period or cycle. And then I divide 2 seconds on divided by the 2.5 seconds total. And whatever that fraction is, well, that's our duty cycle, whatever percentage that is. So long story short, duty cycle is a measure of how long a repeated pattern is on. And it doesn't just have to be flipping a light on and off. Electrical engineers might look at how often a voltage signal is really high versus low. Or mechanical engineers might look at how often your motor is pushing forward, or how often you're applying a force, and then how often you remove that force in that repeated fashion. And the word duty cycle, or the term duty cycle, comes up whenever you have these cyclic patterns in something, these cyclic on-off or cyclic high-low signals. And in engineering today especially, we have that all the time. And duty cycle is a nice summary of what that signal looks like. That's our engineering term of the day, duty cycle. Happy holidays from Pius, your host for the Engineering Word of the Day, and also host of the K-12 Engineering Education Podcast, all about engineering learning before college. Go on over to k12engineering.net to learn more about that awesome podcast. That's k12engineering.net. Thanks.